Before we begin, stay with me until the end of this story, because what this billionaire's daughter did change their family forever. Please subscribe, like, and share. Let's dive into the story. The courtroom was silent the day the blind driver walked in. Everyone expected him to demand money, revenge, or prison. After all, the young woman sitting across from him had destroyed his life. She was the daughter of the richest billionaire in the city, and in a moment of arrogant rage, she had thrown acid at the man who drove her to work every morning. Now he would never see again. The media had called it the most heartless crime of the year. But when the judge finally delivered the punishment, the entire courtroom gasped in disbelief. Because instead of sending the billionaire's daughter to prison, the judge forced her to marry the blind driver whose life she had ruined. What happened after that marriage would shock the entire nation. In the wealthy district of Ajora City lived a young woman named Tarila Bamadil. She was known for two things: her beauty and her arrogance. Tarila was the only daughter of Chief Ade Bamadil, one of the richest businessmen in the country. Her father owned oil companies, hotels, shipping businesses, and half the land around the city. Money had never been a problem for Tarila. And because of that, she had grown up believing something dangerous. That money made her untouchable. Servants feared her. Employees avoided her. Even her friends only stayed close because of her father's wealth. But none of them suffered her cruelty more than the man who drove her every day. His name was Emeka. Emeka had once been a promising young man. He studied engineering in the university and dreamed of becoming an inventor. But life had not been kind to him. When his father fell ill, Emeka had to drop out of school to support his family. Driving for wealthy people became his only option. That was how he ended up working for the Bamadil family. Unlike the other staff, Emeka was quiet and respectful. He never argued. He never complained. Even when Tarila insulted him in front of others. Sometimes she would shout at him for driving too slowly. Other times she would throw her handbag at him from the back seat. Once, she slapped him because he took a different route to avoid traffic. Yet Emeka endured it all. Because he needed the job. What he did not know was that one terrible day would change his life forever. It was a hot afternoon when the tragedy happened. Tarila had just finished arguing with her boyfriend over the phone. Her anger filled the car like fire. "Driver, why are you moving so slowly?" she shouted. "Madam, there is heavy traffic ahead," Emeka replied calmly. That answer made her even angrier. "Are you stupid? Do you know who I am?" The argument escalated quickly. And in a moment of uncontrollable rage, Tarila grabbed a bottle from her handbag. It was a chemical she had bought earlier for a beauty treatment. Before Emeka could react, she splashed the liquid forward. The scream that followed froze the entire street. The chemical burned into his eyes. People rushed toward the car as Emeka cried out in agony. By the time they reached the hospital, the doctors delivered the devastating news. Emeka would never see again. The story exploded across the country. News channels called it the billionaire daughter scandal. People were furious. How can someone be so cruel? Many asked. Activists demanded justice. Protests formed outside the courthouse. Many believed Chief Bamadil would use his wealth to bury the case. But the pressure from the public became too strong. The government had no choice but to prosecute. Tarila was arrested. And for the first time in her life, she realized money could not save her from everything. The trial lasted weeks. Witnesses described her temper. Doctors confirmed the permanent blindness. Even her father's lawyers struggled to defend her actions. Finally, the day of judgment arrived. The courtroom was packed. Everyone expected the same outcome: prison. But the judge had been quietly studying the case from a different angle. When he finally spoke, his words stunned everyone. "Tarila Bamadil," he said, "you have taken a man's sight and destroyed his future." The room was silent. Then he continued, "You will compensate him with everything necessary to rebuild his life." But then came the shocking sentence. "And because you have made him dependent on others for the rest of his life, you will become the person responsible for him." The courtroom leaned forward. The judge finished. "You will marry Emeka and dedicate your life to caring for the man you blinded." Gasps filled the room. Even Tarila's father stood up in shock. No one had ever seen such a judgment before. But the judge refused to change his decision. The marriage would happen, whether she liked it or not. The wedding took place quietly. There was no celebration, no music, no smiling guests. Tarila stood beside Emeka like a prisoner. She hated him. She hated the judge. And she hated the humiliation. But Emeka said nothing. Even though his life had been destroyed, he remained calm. That calmness made her even angrier. She believed he was secretly enjoying her punishment. But what she didn't know was that Emeka carried a secret of his own. One that would soon change everything. Life after the wedding was unbearable for Tarila. The judge had ordered her to personally care for her husband. She had to guide him when walking, serve his meals, help him dress. The spoiled billionaire's daughter had become a caretaker overnight. At first, she treated him coldly. But something strange began to happen. Emeka never insulted her. Never reminded her of what she had done. Never spoke with bitterness. Instead, he thanked her for even the smallest help. That kindness slowly began to confuse her. And for the first time in her life, Tarila began to feel something unfamiliar. Guilt. Months passed. Then one evening, Emeka asked her a strange question. Tarila, do you believe people can change? She did not answer. But that night she cried for the first time since the accident. Because deep inside, she knew she had been a cruel person for many years. Yet the man whose life she ruined was the one showing her the most kindness. What she still didn't know was that Emeka had been hiding something important. Something that would soon shock her. One day, Tarila overheard doctors speaking quietly in the hospital. There was a new experimental surgery. It could restore vision, but it required a rare donor. Without hesitation, she made a decision. She offered to donate part of her own eye tissue. The surgery was risky, but for the first time in her life, she wanted to do something selfless. Months later, Emeka's bandages were removed. The room was silent. Slowly, he opened his eyes. Light returned, and the first person he saw was the woman who had once destroyed his life. But now, she had saved it. Years later, their story became famous. People who once mocked the strange marriage began telling it as a lesson, because the arrogant billionaire's daughter had transformed into a compassionate woman, and the blind driver she once hated became the man she loved most in the world. Sometimes the greatest punishment is the one that changes the heart.